everyone, welcome back to Learn with Sam and Ash. This is Ash, your trainer, and I have tried something really different with this video. In today's video, you're gonna listen to one of my sessions which I had in my extensive English course, and there I got a chance to share my story with a lot of students. So I thought, why not share this story to the world outside, and each one of you can understand what are the things that I did differently in my life, what myths I had tried to remove from my life when it comes to learning English language. So you will find me talking about childhood stories, you will find me talking about the incidents from my college, you will find me talking about the message that I had for you all. And most importantly, you will find that how a person can transform their personality and accept yourself the way you really are. Also, in the while, you will understand that when it comes to learning a language, people have so many misunderstandings, so many myths while you're trying to speak in English. So we have tried to solve each one of them through stories. I hope you enjoy this session. One last statement I want to add here, that the content of this video is shot directly from one of my sessions, so the audio and video may not be up to the mark. In case you want to gain full benefit out of it, please listen to this with your earphones on. Plug your earphones, listen to it. It's going to be a long video, but I can assure you by the end of this video, you will be enjoying it and you will be learning something really beneficial. Language, as I always mention, is something that you can feel for. Okay? No communication is good if you are just saying it from your outer heart. So even if you are communicating with somebody for 2 sentences, you need to put your energy into that. Every single sentence when I teach in my class, or everything that I'm speaking during these sessions, has my 100% heart into it. All of you, or I can say 90% of the students who are in this session right now, are not struggling with English as a language. You're struggling with various other factors. Factors as in there is a fear of judgment. Some of you might be concerned about that. I don't have very good vocabulary when I try to communicate. I'm talking in basic words. Some of you come up with an exception that, Ash, I feel that I'm not good enough. I mean, I'm able to speak, but it's not an effective speech. I don't notice people saying that, wow, it was a good answer. So you guys are not struggling with basic English grammar or basic sentence structure. I'm talking about 80 to 90% of you. Yes, some of you are here who are still struggling with basic sentence structure. So don't worry about it. There are going to be lectures where that will be solved too. But when you move above that, language is more than that. Language is about when there is an idea at the back of my mind and there is a person who's listening to my speech, I have to ensure that this person is catching every single word of mine. It should not be halfway around. It should not be like you yourself are lost in what you're talking about. If that is the case, you are not a good speaker. And I'm not saying this with respect to just English. I'm saying it with respect to any language which is used in communication. When it comes to English language, this distraction is for this unwanted negativity that you carry in your mind most of the time. What do I mean by negativity? This unwanted pressure of speaking in English in the first place. I mean, I can speak in English, okay? But I don't use this language every now and then. I use it when it's of utmost importance. But yes, there were days in my life when I spoke in this language to the maximum I could. Okay? Now, I'll take you back to some of the things that I have done back in my life, which has helped me to remove this pressure over my head, to remove this negativity connected to English language. If I'll be very honest with you, I was never scared of English language because I never took it. It was something hard. Now, when you are 25 years old, when you're 21 years old, when you are 30, 40 years old, and when you're thinking of working on this language, you are not working on this language because you want to. You're working on this language because it's a demand. People have told you to work on it. People have told you, you know what, you will not get this job interview because your English is not good. Or your team manager has come and told you, you know what, I don't think you are doing a good job because you are not able to communicate yourself properly. Or when you are giving a presentation, you yourself feel that people are not understanding me because my English is not good. And that's made you think, you know what, maybe English is not good. I have to work on it.
So this was not your first choice. English communication was not your first choice. Your first choice was to live your life the way you wanted to live, and you keep on doing it because we never thought English will be such a big deal in our life. It was not supposed to be. Okay, a language should not be such a big deal in somebody's life. But what is happening in this 21st century, that it's all about fake. It's all about fakeness. The more you show, the better you are. If I'm reading 100 books in a year, I should be recording a video on it. That's what my intention behind reading a book is. I'm not reading a book because I enjoyed it now. I'm reading a book because I want to show it to the world how many books I can read or how many books I have in my library. So it's all fake. And that's when you thought that if I want to fit into this world, if I want people to tell me that, my English, I have amazing English and I'm smart enough to communicate, you decided to work on your language. But for me, English was not a requirement. English was just fun. Okay. I came from a background where my father never spoke in this language. My mother never spoke in this language. My brother was younger to me. So yes, definitely it was not his first choice to communicate in English. So what I did, I was lucky enough. I'll be very honest here. I was lucky enough that my father decided to get me educated in a convent school. Okay. But this was a convent school which was not highly developed because I come from a place called as Gajrala in Uttar Pradesh, and this is a place which is surrounded by a lot of villages. Like there are hundreds of villages around it, and this small, you can call it as a town. It's not a city or a big area. It is a small town where you will find some 150 houses. When I came to this place, the only thing my father was fascinated about was his intention was that I am not able to stand in front of people who are educated and they can talk properly. So I'll make my kids to that level. I think this is a dream which most of your parents had when you were kids. Parents had this expectation that if I was not able to do so and so thing, I will make my kids do it for me. So for me, it was my father's dream in a way that my kids should be able to speak in English because I'm not able to do it. He was working in a sugar factory back in his days. Though we are farmers, my entire background is farming. My uncles are doing farming, or my father was doing farming. So farming was a side business for us, but they were all working in separate industries. So my father was working in sugar mill, and he used to meet a lot of educated people in sugar mill. These people who were the owners of sugar mills, or who was at official level, or the VPs of sugar mills. And my dad was way too good in sports. He's an athlete. He still plays a lot of games, and he was a national player in football and kabaddi when he was in his days. So what happened, when he used to look at those people, it made him think that one day I'll have kids and I'll make my kids speak in this language. Okay. Now what happened, when I was growing up, he got me into a school which was convent, but people in my school never spoke English. There is this myth about convent. Maybe in big cities, convents have this policy that you have to speak in English. But in my school, there was no compulsion. We had sisters in our school, and those sisters were able to speak in Hindi because they needed Hindi so that they could communicate with the parents of the students who were coming from villages. Gajrala, as I mentioned, was a small town, so teachers in that school were asked to speak in Hindi so that when parents come to ask about their kids' performance, they should be able to come. When I used to come back home, and this was around fifth standard or sixth standard, I think that is the first memory I have of this language where I took interest in English when I was in fifth standard, I guess. So one day when I was sitting there, my father would come and ask me that, and this was a usual thing that he would do. He would come and ask me, why don't you show me how to speak in English? Why don't you speak in English in front of me? And I would say that, Father, you don't understand English. So is it important? And he would say that, yes, I would like to hear you. Now, these things were not important back then. Let me be honest. When he was asking me this thing, this would be like a father-daughter moment. I never used to think that this would be a big deal in my life. He would sit and I would say that, I have three sentences. I'm going to say that because when you were in sixth standard, you were learning sentences from your books or from teachers, and you would admire a teacher and you would think, okay, I would use this word in my life. Somebody was saying a sentence in English. You felt good about it. That was the memory I had. So what I used to do, I would sit in front of him and I will speak as if I was talking to a lot of people. It would give me boost. And when he would say that, wow, you speak so well, I was not speaking well, let me be honest, because I remember my English was not good till my 12th standard or my college. I used to struggle. I was not able to communicate even a single sentence in English. That was the real story behind this. So this used to happen every now and then. So what happened with this gesture of my father, or this enthusiasm of my father, was one simple thing, that I was not scared of English because English was fun and a way to impress my father. So I got into this habit of impressing my father by speaking two sentences or three sentences in English. And even though he never understood English, he could not, I mean, he can read English, of course, but not the way we read it. He would take 10 minutes to read two to three sentences. He's a graduate, he's educated and all, but back then education was not his first requirement. As I mentioned, he was into sports, and my mother uh, was so damn busy in making ourselves have a comfortable life. They struggled a lot in their life, and so many things happened, which is backstory. So when all of these things happened, I became interested in English because every time there was this thing. I mean, you all had this thing back in school, that morning assembly. If you remember, any school you go, there is always a morning assembly, and there used to be thought of the day, or speech of the day, or news of the day, amazing facts of the day. So what I would do is that if it was my class turn to us, have the assembly or the morning, these things, I would be the first person in the class to say that, ma'am, I want to try. Okay. And I would always start with something small, like thought of the day. So thought of the day would be that you will write two sentences on a piece of paper. You will go on the stage and you will say that thought of the day in front of a lot of people. And I did it initially with thought of the day. Then later on, I jumped to amazing facts, because you have to read from a paper. Then I would jump to news of the day. You have to read it from a newspaper. And then there was the last and the final thing, that was speech of the day. And the speech of the day was to be delivered without looking into the paper. Okay? Yes. So what used to happen when I was doing this, and this is what I always teach you guys in the class. On day one of the session, I told you there are 4 activities that you have to do every single day if you want to see the change happening in you. And those 4 activities were: read a page every single day, read at least 2 to 5 pages loudly. How this activity is connected to what I was doing when I was going for when I was going for thought of the day or amazing facts of the day, the only thing that I was doing was reading. I would stand in front of hundreds of students of my school. I would look into my paper and there was a mic in front of me, and I'll speak as loudly as possible. So initially it was just a reading part. And later on, I realized if I read it properly, if I make each and every word sound very clear, people would enjoy it more. And that's why I have told you in the class that when you read it loudly. Listen to yourself. Read as if each and every word in that sentence matter. Each and every word has an importance. You have to read in such a way. You just don't have to read it like, okay, finish, finish, finish. No, feel it as if you're standing in front of 100 people. You have 2 sentences and you have to give your entire energy into that. This is something I was doing when I was in my 5th standard, and I didn't realize it. It's going to be a huge impact on my language, or I will become an English trainer back then. Right? So this was happening when I was in 5th standard, and then I continued doing it. If there was an assembly, I would go on the stage. Then later on, if you realize, there are a lot of other competitions, like sometimes they have speech competitions, sometimes they have debate competitions. Not very often. Not very often. Like every week, you don't have a debate competition, but once in a year, there was a competition when I was in 6th standard or 7th standard. So from speaking in front of my father to speaking in front of assembly, I thought of upgrading myself and go for a competition instead. And when I went for a competition, I realized that I was already speaking better than 190% of my school. Hold on one second. I was speaking better than almost 90 to 80% of my school because I was so clear. I knew each and every word I was talking, and I knew that people would understand it because I have done so many sessions in my school, right? So this was the first memory I had that English for me was not a requirement. English for me was fun and a way to impress my father. As simple as that. I was not excited to speak in this language, but my father had so much interest in this language that he made sure that I'll get my daughter educated in a convent school and I will make sure that she speaks in this language. Okay. Now I understand most of your parents have put so much energy into your education to make you a better person or a good human and everything. But the energy they might have put was something else. But for me, I was lucky enough that my father's energy was into English. Okay. Now, second thing, second thing that made me interested in reading books. I talked about reading as such. So when I was just reading out of nowhere, when I was doing it when nobody was watching me, in your school there was an activity that every teacher would ask and say that read one paragraph. Each and every student will stand up and they had to read one paragraph. I enjoyed this part of my class so much that I will always make sure that I read at least 5 lines. And it became a habit that I started reading it at home and then I'll read it in the class. And when I used to read at home, I always stood in front of the mirror and I used to look at my face. I used to look at my hands. I used to look at my pauses. Okay. So this became a process just to have fun in the class. Later on, I realized when I started teaching and when I started doing my research that how can you become an effective speaker, I realized that everything that I was doing in my childhood had actually made me speak like that. Okay. So the second incident that happened was when I started gaining this interest in reading was when I was, I think, 22 or 23 years old. That's when I thought of reading my first book. I still remember I read a book which was called as Chetan Bhagat's 2020 Revolution. I think there is a book like that of Chetan Bhagat, 2020 Revolution. That was my first book that I have ever read in my life. And back then, Chetan Bhagat was a big deal. If you ask somebody who was reading a book, they would say, read Chetan Bhagat. And the another reason why I read Chetan Bhagat, one day I was at a railway station and I was in Lucknow. In railway stations, you always have a bookstore or a newspaper outlet. If you have gone to railway stations, you will always find a bookstore there. Small outlet for newspaper, magazines, and books. And I was a student back then, final year of my college, I think so. So when I was in my final year of college, one day I was at the railway station, was supposed to catch my train to home. And I saw this bookstore. I went there. And when you were in college, you didn't have money. Okay. You didn't have fancy phones or a lot of other things. So we were having 100, 200 bucks in our pocket. That was the maximum amount you used to have back in there. So I went there and there was this book. It was second-hand book and it was for 100 rupees. I still remember, I thought that let me have this book with me and I will try to read it in the train. So I got that book, I started reading it, and it was a fancy story. I always love a good romantic movie. I always love a good millennial kind of a book, something which is very light-hearted. Not much energy has to be put into that. Simple language. I enjoy such books. So I picked that book and I started reading it, and I realized that when I was reading that book, I was distracted. You cannot imagine somebody reading a book for the first time and you would just straightforward finish 100 pages. No, I still remember I started reading that book, and after every 2 pages, I would like look outside the window and see how beautiful the weather was, or maybe thinking about my exams, thinking about my parents, so many thoughts, and then again, I will open my book and start. There was one more thing that I was doing, which I was not knowing, that I realized when I was in my college, there was a senior. She was a lady. Okay, she was 2 years elder to me. She was living in my hostel. And one day, somebody asked me to get something from her. So when I went into her room, I knocked on the door. She was 2 years elder to me, so we were scared. And when I was in college, we had to call them ma'am. And if there was a senior, we used to call them sir. So when I went into her room and I had to ask her something, so I realized that I spoke in Hindi. I spoke in Hindi to her and I said, "आपको कोई नीचे बुला रहा है." मैंने उनसे बोला कि आपको कोई नीचे बुला रहा है. Somebody is calling you outside. So she replied and she said that, "Sure, I'll be there in a minute." And it made me think that I spoke in Hindi and this person replied to me in English. And then later, when I started noticing her more, I realized that she never spoke in Hindi. That lady, in my knowledge, she never spoke in Hindi. She was from Delhi. She could speak in Hindi. She knew how to speak in Hindi. But there was a personality that she built for herself, and her personality was a bold English speaking girl. And one more thing which I noticed in her room was hundreds of books. When I entered into a hostel room, we didn't have a very fancy hostel room. It was very simple, white, plain, rooms with a bed, and you have a small cupboard for yourself. That was your room, and you would share it with three other people. Three roommates were there. So when I went into her room, I noticed that she would have her table and on the top of that, she had books after books, and all were novels. So when I looked at her and her room, I realized that this is amazing. If I imagine myself to grow up somebody like that, I think I will take this person or this female as consideration. I loved her bold personality. I was bold, but I was bold in a very desi sense. Okay, I was a tomboy when I was in my school and when I was in my college days. I was a tomboy. I had a huge personality crisis. I never understood how to behave like a girl. I'll be very honest here. It was very hard for me to accept myself as a girl who would have, I always had long hair because my mother loved long hair. So I always used to have hair till there. But then having long hair doesn't imply you can act like a girl. I didn't have dressing sense. I was not a good looking person. I'm still not a good looking person. I consider myself to be way too average. So I was fairly dark, because as I said, I belong to a farming background. My father and mother was hardworking people. They never had time to make me look better. They never had enough money to give me fancy clothes. We had good clothes, we had good food, but it was not all too fancy. When you go to college, you realize that there are students from across the state, and some of them were rich. Some of them had so many good books, so many good clothes. Their dressing sense was good. They knew how to talk about. They could go out with their boyfriends or girlfriends and spend money. On the other hand, I on that place was having huge personality crisis, and I realized that the only way I can solve this personality crisis and I accept myself the way I am is just to be as I can and try to become a better person as myself. So that incident made me think. When I looked at that person, I realized this is who I want to be. This is how I want people to look at me. If somebody looks at me, they should come and say that, you know what, Ashwini, your personality is amazing. You're bold, you're fearless, your language is amazing, and you read books. Okay. So that when I stood in that room, it made me think. Like when I came back to my room, I realized that this is how I want people to consider me. Back then, language still was not an issue for me because I graduated from a government college. It's a college for polymer engineering. I wanted to become an engineer because that's what my parents told me, that if you want to get a job, become an engineer. So I was not good with computers. I was not good with electrical or all these subjects. So I thought, let me study chemistry. And polymer was the only branch I was able to get with my score. So I took polymer engineering. I had no idea what I'll do with that. But yes, you go with the flow. When I was sitting in my hostel room, I realized that I have to do something with myself. And when you have huge personality crisis, these crises strike you every now and then. You know, when you stand in that college and you look around people having girlfriend, boyfriend, that was a big blast for me. I realized that I'm a girl too, and I would have emotions for somebody, and I will fall for guys. When you were in school, we never used to think about these things. So there was a personality crisis. Should we do it? Should we not? Because my mother told me that if you go to college and you do something stupid, it's going to be bad. So I was a good girl in that case. When I went to college, I accepted no boyfriends. You cannot make boyfriends because this is wrong. So there was a personality crisis. Number two, when you go to college and you look at boys, you feel your hormones are changing, you are growing in your life, and you feel that, I like this guy, and you realize that these people not look back at you. There was a personality crisis. I would feel, why they don't look at me? Do I look this bad? Number three, there were girls in my hostel who would wear such fancy dresses and they would look like a woman, they would look like a girl, and I did not have dressing sense. Personality crisis. And then when you open your mouth, you speak, you don't know how to speak proper English. There was a personality crisis. So these all things you never realize when you are in school, because in school you're protected. You're protected by your parents. Your parents give you a safe environment at home. They tell you that if you study and work hard, you will get everything in life. They never tell you how this world is going to treat you. When you go out of your house, there is nobody to save you. There is nobody to save you from all the heavy talks your roommates can make about you. They never teach you that how to manage your money. If you had 100 rupees in hostel, you literally fight for 1 rupee. I fought with my roommates for 1 rupees because that was a big deal. They didn't teach us that 1 rupee do not matter if you have, good communication, good relationship with these people, and you can do such things. And one more thing, if you realize, these struggles a guy do not have. Guys do not have such struggles. Ladies have such struggles, because we are so jealous. We are so conscious about ourselves, about my hair, about everything. Okay. So when I realized that I had so many personality crises, I actually decided to work on myself and I started behaving differently. I was trying to change my personality because I wanted to fit into the society. It was important for a 17 or 18-year-old Ashwini and 19 years old Ashwini. I wanted to fit into the society. I wanted to fit into that girl's gang. I wanted to look beautiful. I wanted to behave like them. And I started doing it. And then I realized that when I was trying to change myself, I was only making myself miserable. I was waiting for other people to say that, you know what, you look beautiful, and I will be happy about it. And I did it for a long amount of time. I did it continuously for 5 to 6 years of my college days and when I was doing my job. So the thing that I changed on that day was I started reading books. I would read one book in 2 months or 3 months whenever I get a chance, but I will read books. Number two, what I was doing is I started communicating in English and I would do it with safe people. Yeah, I would do it with safe environment. Somebody who would be who will not judge me, like my roommates. I would try to communicate with them in English. I would try to communicate with teachers in English. And later on, I realized that English is okay for me because I was not scared. One thing that I accepted about myself, that if I have to survive in this, crazy world, I have to accept myself. So I started accepting myself. I started telling myself that, you know what, your English is good. Go ahead and speak. And I would literally go ahead and take part in all these debate competitions. Even if I fail, it didn't scare me because I was over that phase. That phase, which was in my school, I was already over it. Now I was okay with my speech. And then I tried to expose myself a lot. So what I realized that day, that reading and accepting that your language is okay was second and third most important thing that I did in my life. And that's why whenever I teach in my class, second or third thing I always tell you is to tell yourself that your English is good. This appreciation is not going to come from outside. People will never tell you your English is good. People will never tell you look beautiful. People will never tell you that, what, your personality is amazing. You have to tell yourself. Later on, once you are comfortable with yourself, you will notice that people are doing the same thing for you. Okay. And when I grew up a little bit, grew up as a person, I realized that looks were not that big a deal. In college, when you are 17, 18 or 19 years old, looks were important for me. But when I grew up in life and when I started questioning other important things, they didn't matter to me much. I was comfortable with myself. And when I started accepting myself, I started changing automatically. Because now I don't mind if I have short hair, long hair. I don't mind if my color is fair or dark. I didn't mind if I was wearing a kurti or a t-shirt. I was okay with everything I was wearing because now I was feeling happy from inside and I was okay with my personality. Another thing which I told myself with language as well as personality was that if you are here, you think your competition will be with this person and you will try hard to reach to this level, and then immediately you will notice that there is somebody better than you, and then you will work hard to reach there, and then you will realize there is somebody better than you. So in terms of looks, in terms of your language, there is always going to be competition. So why are you craving for looking beautiful? Why are you telling, my language should be this good, I should have American accent and everything? No, you don't have to do that, because the competition is so much that if you try to work for that, you're losing all these happy things that you could do with yourself. And that's what I did. I did not compare myself with a lot of hundreds of other good speakers out in the world. I started working on myself. I started having the competition with myself. If on the first day of my debate competition I did not win, I tried next time and I tried to work on my language. Okay, so that was the third thing which I did differently, was that I put myself out in the world and I would use every single opportunity to speak in this language because I wanted to become like her. And she was not a very girly girl. She was a tomboy too. But she was so confident that if you stand in front of her, you would actually feel so much energy coming out of her. And I loved it. I was always a scared person. But when I looked at her, I decided I want to become like her. So the fourth and the most important thing which I did with myself was that I gained as much confidence there was in the world. I became such a confident person, especially in English language, that you ask me to speak to Barack Obama tomorrow, I will stand up there and I'll deliver the entire speech in English. I will not be scared at all. Even if my heart will pump heavily, even if I'm shivering, you will not notice that. And how did that happen? Because I failed so many times when I was delivering speeches, when I was going on stages, when I was trying to communicate with people. I realized that they're so better than me that I had to work for that. So I started working on myself, and the work was not hard, but it was slow and continuous. Reading books, reading it out loud, speaking at every single moment English was required, accepting yourself. The biggest factor why most of you struggle with your language is not because of English. I'm not saying this is the only fact. This is one of the facts. One of the reasons why you are not able to speak yourself, because you have not accepted your personality as such. You're still scared. You're scared of how you look. You're scared of how you want people to pursue you. You are scared how you want to look in that next presentation. You're scared what kind of promotion you want in life. If you remove all these factors and you speak in English, you speak as it is a language which can help you to communicate properly, you will feel that you are doing 100 times better. I can guarantee you on that. The day I accepted my personality, that day I accepted that I have to speak in English, I was not scared. And I have received this comment or compliment from a lot of people in my life that Ashwini, more than your language, we love your personality. You are very bold. You're so confident, and you guys have not met me. The only way you know me is through my videos. And on my videos, I'm only 2% of my personality. Only 2% of my personality you are able to watch on my videos. In my real life, I'm a very outspoken person. I talk a lot, literally a lot. And at the same time, I'm an introvert. Sometimes when I get bugged up with people, I enjoy reading books. I try to finish one book every week as much as possible. If I'm sick, if I'm not feeling well, if I'm traveling, I'll finish 3 books in a week. The best thing, if you want to sound more confident and comfortable with your language, is if you accept yourself. Okay? If you stop thinking that people will judge you, and what will happen if people will judge you for English? The only thing you think that will happen is they will think less of you. They will think you are not educated enough. They will think that your knowledge is not enough. They will think that you're not smart enough. That's the only thing you think when other people are saying that your English is not good. So it's not about language, it's your personality. It's about that. Have you ever seen, let me ask you one thing. Have you ever seen somebody who comes from a very rich family struggling about their language, or they care about the language? Have you ever seen that? In my experience, I have not. But if you have, you tell me. A person who has a lot of money in their bank accounts, their parents are successful, they have fancy cars and everything. Have you ever seen them talking about language, or they worry about language, or they say that my language is not good, I'm not smart enough? No. Why? Why do you need a language? Because you need money. You need a language so that you can get a job interview, so that you can get hired and you will have money in your account and you can prove to the world, I know everything. Right? Remove this single pressure out of it. That with English you can earn money. Remove that. With English you can sound more smart. Remove that. With English you can impress people. Remove that. Just remove these three fundamentals and use English as just a medium to communicate. At home, when nobody's around you, stand in front of the mirror, take a notebook, read it out loud. When you do this activity not to impress people, not to get a job interview, you will perform better. It's the pressure of your personality. Those rich kids, they don't have personality crisis. Why? Because most of the personality crisis happen because you want to fit into the society, you want to earn money, you want to have a luxury life. That's the only reason you have personality crisis. If you remove that, you will not be feeling this way. So I didn't learn it for almost 10 years of my life because, again, I come from a background where there were always money crises. Always money crisis. I never seen in my family my father saying that, you know what, today we have money. Never. Never have he has ever said that, you know what, let's go a shop. We have a lot of money in our bank accounts. Never. So I always grew up in a family where being a tomboy was comfortable because you didn't have to buy fancy clothes and you can wear your brother's t-shirt, you can wear your father's t-shirt and people would be okay with that. They never told you how to behave in the outer society. They never told you how to accept yourself because acceptance was not important for them. Survival was important, right? But now the time is changing. There are a lot of people who have huge amount of money and they're not happy. Let's be honest. I will tell you something. I started earning 20,000. There was a time when I had to work for 12,000 as well. There was a time when I had to earn, 1 second. Yeah, there was a time when I had to work for 12,000 when I started my teaching job. There was a time when I earned 17,000. There was a time when I earned 30,000. Then there was a time when I earned 50,000 in my job. The journey from 12,000 to 50,000, one thing that I have realized was that it's never enough. I was able to survive at 12,000 and I was not able to survive at 50,000 because my expenses increased. From 50,000, I moved to business. I left my job, started business with my husband, worked on a YouTube channel, created our teaching classes and everything. And a lot of engrossment projects we get, we had to do promotions and all. Huge amount of money in my bank account. Still, I'm not happy. There was time that I still felt that, okay, money is not enough. But but the only happiness that I could relive in my last 10 years, it's not 10 years, I would say almost 6 years of my career when I worked as a teacher, as an HR, as a polymer engineer, and now as this trainer online. The only thing that I realized is it was never about money. It was never about money. It was accepting yourself and, yes, having enough so that you can sustain yourself. If you try to fit into the society for other people, you will realize that there is no perfect society. You buy a car for 10 lakhs, they will say that, you know what, this person has a 20 lakh car, your 10 lakh is not worth it. So your 10 lakh is gone. You buy the most expensive dress of, let's say, 10,000 rupees and you realize there is a dress of 20,000 rupees. What do you do now? 10,000 is not worth it. You buy a headphones for 3,000 rupees and next day in the market there is a headphones for 10,000 rupees or 40,000 rupees. What do? You will buy the 40,000 headphones. I literally have a headphone of Boss which is of 34,000 rupees because I wanted to imagine how luxury looks like. My husband bought it for me. It's 34,000 rupees. Honestly, for last 8 months, I have not used them. Why? Because now it's just a product. There is no emotion attached to it. There is no excitement to use it. It's just a product packed somewhere, kept in the corner. Right? And then one other thing. The only thing that gave me happiness was when I was able to spend that money on my parents or my brother or my in-laws. Okay. So it was never about language. It was never about language for me. It was all about surviving and fitting into the society to make myself acceptable as Ashwini Chaudhary was the only thing I was doing in my life. And language just came when I didn't need it and I was able to work on it. So there is a phrase that I want to say at the end of this session, and that would be that if you are waiting for an opportunity to strike and you're not prepared, opportunity will come and will pass by. But the day you keep preparing yourself, and when the opportunity strike, you will realize that you will use your preparation to knock that opportunity right in that moment. I'll explain it. When I was sitting here and I'm trying, when I'm sitting here and when I'm trying to, get a package of 50 lakh per, I imagine myself earning, let's say 2 crores. I imagine myself earning 2 crores and I'm not doing anything for it. I'm just waiting that one day somebody will tell me, you have this job interview which will give you 2 crores. And the day you have that job letter in your hand, tomorrow you have a job interview for 2 crore rupees, but you didn't work for it. You didn't prepare yourself. On the other hand, I was working on my English language from the very first memory of my life, when I was not doing it for money, when I was not doing it to impress society, when I was not doing it to get a job interview, and I was working. I was enjoying the process of reading. I was enjoying the process of talking to people. I was speaking in this language every now and then. And then one fine day, I decided I want to change my career from polymer engineer to become a public speaker. And the only thing I had with me was my English and my personality. So I decided, let me quit my job and let me try doing something out of this. And I had no idea what I'll do, but I decided to just go to Bangalore because somebody told me that, if you want to work on English, go to Bangalore. Bangalore is a place where people only speak in English because they don't understand Hindi, they don't understand other languages. So I decided to leave everything and go to that city out of nowhere. And when I landed him in that city, I realized that if you have to ask somebody where to find a bus, you had to talk in English. And I was like, wow, this is it. Now I had to talk in English. And then I decided that let me go to McDonald's to find a job, because that's what you saw in movies. If you want to make your life out of nowhere, go to McDonald's, find a job. They didn't give me a job because they were paying 60 rupees per hour. So I said, this is way too less. Then I went to a superstore, general store. I told them I want a job part-time. They said, you are an engineer. You will leave the job the moment you get a job. I said, I don't want to get a job. I already left a job. They said, no, we cannot hire you. And then I decided, and again, some person told me, you know what, Ashwini, you had amazing personality. You are so bold. You left your home and everything, and your English is good. Why don't you teach? So I decided, yeah, I think I like teaching. I have a lot of things I can teach to the world. I started finding local institutes around my area, in my PG, around my PG. And my father gave me money for 1 month. So I was able to find a PG for me. And I looked around. I went to this first institute. They told me, you are young. I was 22 back then. They told me, you are young. People will not learn from you. You are way too young to teach a 40-year-old kid. And I was like, okay. Second institute I went, they said, you don't have a teaching experience and you don't know how to teach grammar. And they were right. I didn't know how to teach grammar. I didn't get a job. The third institute I went there was this one person who told me, I loved your personality. I love the way how you stood up. I love the way how your shoulders are. You're very bold and all. And I was like, okay. And this person said, why don't you prepare a grammar lecture and give it to me tomorrow? I'll see what I can do. I went there, I prepared a lecture, and then he was the only person in the room. And he said, you know what? I like when a younger person with so much enthusiasm, learned out of life experiences, can teach people. You're going to go big. And I was like, thank you so much. And I got that job. They told me, we will give you 12,000 rupees for 5 hours. It's going to be a part-time job. I took it. I took it because I needed something and my money was expired and all. And I informed my parents and they actually told me that it's not a good idea. You cannot just go to Bangalore and earn 12,000 rupees. That's not what we expected out of you. You are a girl, you are 22, you have to get married in 2 years. We needed money from you. We wanted you to support us and you want us to support you. So again, middle class mentality. But then I decided it's not going to change now. And coincidentally, maybe it was destiny for me that after a month of my job, I actually saw Sam in that institute and we happened to talk. When we talked, we realized that we had same stories. I ran from Delhi. He actually ran from Germany. He left his job in Germany. He was there for almost 4 years. One day he decided that he don't want to do this job and he's fed up. He decided he'll come back to India and start teaching people. He came there. He lived in Gujarat most of his life. He's from North India but settled in Gujarat. And he fought with his parents and came to Bangalore out of nowhere. I don't know how. We met and we discussed a lot of things. And when we were discussing, we realized that we had so much in common. I wanted to teach, he wanted to teach. He left his job, I left my job. We both had same caste. Though I'm a Punjabi Jat, he is a Hindu Jat, but kind of there was a similarity. Such a coincidence. And then we both enjoy doing something apart from what people have told us to do. And we wanted to create something. So we thought it's going to be so easy that we'll start a business out of nowhere. We left our job. He was earning 18,000, I was earning 12,000. We left our job and we thought we'll create our own institute. We rented an apartment. Nobody came. Just two of my old students came and few of his old students came and we started teaching them. We got some money to survive and then we did a seminar which failed. 200 people promised they will come, only 4 people came and they didn't purchase what we wanted to sell them. They said give it for free. We didn't have a choice. We told them no. They went. So we had to change our careers. We had to join jobs back. I decided to change my career into HR. So it was just a coincidence. And again, somebody told me that, you can become a recruiter. You have good English, go recruit people. I started my job as an HR. He started teaching people for IELTS and German. We started doing whatever we wanted to do. And then uh, we were doing jobs. It was another 2 years that we invested in jobs. We didn't think of business and everything because survival became important. My parents were telling me, please send money home. We need money. I had a younger brother, a lot of responsibilities. So there again, we thought it's high time. We don't want to do jobs. And then we decided, Sam decided to leave his job. I decided to took a sabbatical from Mindtree. I was working in Mindtree as an HR. I took a sabbatical for 3 months. We created an English course. He created an IELTS course. And then we decided, let's create Learn with Sam and Ash because I'm Ashwini, Ash, Satyam, Sam. We decided to create a channel on October somewhere, 2019. He said, let's name the channel as Learn with Sam and Ash, not Satyendra or Ashwini or something which is related to me. I had no idea what YouTube is. I had no idea how to earn money from him. But it was his idea. It was his struggle. He was failing for so many years. He's elder to me. He failed for 5 years continuously in his life. And that's when all his knowledge of editing, all his knowledge of YouTube, all his knowledge of IELTS and German, we decided to create a channel. We posted 40 videos because the 3 months of sabbatical, we created courses, we put it on free. We gave the entire course of IELTS for free. We gave the entire grammar course for free, entire vocabulary course for free on our YouTube channel. And then I joined back my job because now my father was asking me, what are you doing these days? You don't send money home. You don't have money. What are you doing there? Come back. We'll get you married, get settled somewhere. That's when I told them that, you know what, there is something that I wanted to create. And I already told him about Satyendra Sam. And this is what we wanted to do. And would you help us? So would you give me more time? My father said, okay, take few more months. And then I was working again, and one day it came to my mind that, you know what, why don't we show our faces on the channel and why don't we teach something, something regular face to face. So I decided to create a 30 days challenge. And when we posted our day 0 and day 1, we put some money on it. People loved it. People gave us lakhs and millions views on day 1. I think it has crossed 14 million views on YouTube on day 1. You check my day 1, you check my day 0, you will see a scared person sitting in front of the camera, so scared to even say single sentences on confidence because I was scared. We were scared because, as I said, I had personality crisis in my entire life. I didn't like the way I looked for my entire life. So I stood there and Sam told me, you know what, just do it. We did it. It picked up, and that was a turning point for our life. That's when I realized that all this time, when I was not waiting for an opportunity and I was working on my language, I realized that it paid me back. Every single reading I have done in the class, every single debates I had ever been to, every single time I have failed, gave me a boost to create something like Learn with Sam and Ash. And Sam and I are both proud of it. We are damn proud of it because we didn't come from a huge background. We are not fancy people. A lot of YouTubers have commented on my channel and told me, you look like a man, and you should wear some makeup, you should dress up like women, you wear a boy's black t-shirt. And but back then, one thing I realized about myself, that I will never do anything to impress people. That's why I'm not on social media. I created Instagram account so many times, but I couldn't handle it. I couldn't handle the pressure of posting a reel and waiting for people to give me feedback. I can't do it. A lot of people have told us to start a vlog channel. You have a channel, you have 1 million subscribers. If you start a channel, you will start earning from vlogs. A lot of YouTubers have done it. We could not. The moment I only use my phone in the entire day just to receive calls from students or to use this WhatsApp for you guys. That's the only thing I do with my phone. I don't have an Instagram. I don't have a Facebook account. I am not on Twitter. I'm not on all these crazy apps, TikTok and everything. Because all this time in my life, I have realized it. The final thing that I've realized is money cannot buy you happiness. You should have it. I'm not saying don't earn money. Earn as much as you can, but don't depend on it for your happiness. It will never be about money. When I and Sam fight, we don't think about how much money we earn. We only think about that why are we fighting? Why are we not happy with each other? We loved each other. We had such an amazing time. Why are we struggling with this? So it's not about money. It's about the treatment you get from people, the way you want to feel. You want to feel beautiful, you should feel beautiful. You want to look like a girl, you should look like a girl. It's not about money. Second of all, your family will be the utmost important thing. The most important thing in your family, it's going to be your family. So, and don't involve finances in your family, only involve emotions. Keep money aside because money ruins everything. So if you have this much, you will be happy because now you have a good husband, you have a good family, you are able to survive in society. And the utmost happiness you will get is when you do something for yourself, not for your husband, not for your mother, not for your father, just for yourself. Do you do something that gives you peace? For me, that one thing is this. And I write. I want to become a writer. I don't know when I'll become a writer, but the only thing that I do every single day, I put a date in front of it and I just write. It's not a diary, like I don't do journal and all, but I write. And that's why I told you, write every single day. I have written for almost 5 years, not regularly, but yes, whenever I'm sad, when I'm not happy, when I fight with people, I write. And then I read. I read a lot, as much as I can, because when I'm reading, I feel detached from the world. I feel detached from this Instagram and fake world. The last thing which I realized was that even if I earn 20 crores, 30 crores, the only thing I would want to do every single day of my life is to wake up, have a cup of coffee, write something, work on something, create something that could inspire people, and then read something, watch a Netflix show, lie down, have a good talk with my husband and my family, and that's all I want to do. So this was my story in short, 1 hour of a session. And about language, as I always say, please stop attaching your life with it. Enjoy it. Enjoy the fun you will get when I give you feedback that, you know what, Mamta, Lekha, Shruti, Srikumar, Kirti, anybody, you know what, you spoke amazing today. That feedback is everything. The day you hear me saying that, you know what, you did amazing today, please trust it. Because this is what achievement is. Achievement is not a job interview. Because if you put so much energy onto that opportunity and you're not prepared, you will not get it. The day you prepare, and then a job opportunity strike, you're gonna do a good bam there.